Welcome to another edition of Living with Purpose. Today, I have Preeti Suri, business executive, a investor, somebody that has been an investment banker, has been in the finance sector, and then one day decided that she actually liked the outdoors. And through that journey, became an entrepreneur and started this company called AdventureTripr, which is a organization that helps you go on these wonderful travel adventures with guides guiding you throughout that journey. So please join me in welcoming Preeti. Preeti, welcome to Living with Purpose.
Thanks so much, Akhtar. What an honor to be here. And thanks for that beautiful introduction.
So let's start off by you just sharing your journey coming out of India, you're growing up, and how you eventually came to where you are.
So I come from a family of refugees. My grandparents, both maternal and paternal, were Hindu Punjabis who had to move from Pakistan to India during partition, leaving everything behind. So my parents are very self-made people who had limited means. In fact, the first 10 years of my life, I remember me, my brother, and my parents, we lived in a one-bedroom house, and they could not afford to spend on professional education of two kids. So I remember I got into chartered accountancy and studied to be a chartered accountant alongside my undergrad. And by the time I was 21, 22, I was a chartered accountant working with Big Four accounting firms and then supporting my brother's engineering and then his master's afterwards in the US. So, of course, I self-funded my own education. I then did CPA while working and did an MBA as well. So, yeah, started my career as an auditor with the Big Four accounting firms, grew rapidly.
Let me stop you here before you
Sure.
breeze past all the interesting parts of growing up.
Yeah.
So let's kind of go back to your growing up, right? So what were you good at? What were you outdoorsy even then?
No, there were no outdoors. We didn't travel. Like I said, we had limited means. I was always into sports and always really good at sports. So yeah, I'm a badminton state player, the school volleyball team captain. I was always in extracurriculars and sports always. So yes, I was always good at sports and also education. Like I never stood second in any class, in any grade, in all sections. I would always stand first. So very competitive growing up in sports and when it came to academics.
And what was your parents' influence on that, right? I mean, they're growing up in a refugee family. How do they nurture you to allow you to excel in both sports and education, especially women in time growing up?
So that's a great question. So obviously, the belief, my parents raised us with the belief that education was the way to a better life. So the focus always had to be education. So much that I remember after my 10th grade, even though I was a badminton state player, my mom stopped me from playing all sport. And I remember there were three things she stopped me from doing so that I would just focus on my studies. One was my sports. After that, I did not compete. Then she stopped. I used to read one library book per day. And I would not do anything till I'm done with the book because she just wanted me to focus on my coursework and studies. And I remember I used to play sports after school every day, come back home pretty late. And the third thing was watching TV. So sometimes I would watch like 4 movies back to back. So that was back then in 11th and 12th. And then that's how I started doing my undergrad alongside my CA, alongside an internship, alongside a CWA, because all my extracurriculars actually just stopped after my 10th grade. I still don't watch TV since I got back to reading at some point, and I again I'm a voracious reader now. But my sports were stopped till I actually started hiking when I moved again back from London to Seattle. I did play cricket for Deloitte in India, but yeah, growing up after 10th grade, it was all focused on education.
Education then gets you into the accounting firms. Talk a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So, in India to do chartered accountancy, you don't have to pay anything. It was one of the toughest exams to pass. Only 2% of the people pass chartered accountancy or did at that time, the chartered accountancy exams. And in fact, you start doing articleships. I was earning by the time I was 18, but working for an accounting firm full time while doing my CA classes, 5:30 a.m. in the morning to 7, then going to do then doing my BCom for a couple hours, then going to an articleship firm, accounting firm, doing my articleship till 5 p.m. and then coming back and studying for my CA exams. And BCom just happened. I remember because I was never going to college because I was working in my internship. But my principal in the college would not give me my hall ticket because they said she has no attendance to gain enough attendance. So my dad was called. And then they realized, oh, this is the Preeti Suri, which has the highest scores in all the subjects. We didn't know who it was. And that's how I got my hall ticket. And I think I was one of the top 10 rankers in undergrad. And I didn't even have the books because I was studying for standard accountancy. And so that's how CA happened. And then again, I was quite a, go-getter always. So when I was at PwC, if everybody was working on 2 clients, I always had 4, 5, 6 clients. I was one of the youngest team leads, grew rapidly to be one of the youngest partners. And every year I would go back and say, I want to do my MBA. And my partners would give me, more responsibility, a promotion, and I kept growing, but had this itch to go do an MBA and, maybe build a business or run a business. But yeah, so that got held off for 6 years because I kept doing more and more audits. I was poached by Ernst & Young in Bangalore, and then I was poached by Deloitte, which was setting up the US firm offshore practice in Hyderabad. I worked for them, helped them set up the offshore practice in India. Was first accounting firm ever to offshore audit to India. And I remember at 25 years old, I was here in Miami pitching, sending audit to India, doing it remotely to the audit committee of MetLife when I was 25. And that was the first piece of audit work that I've ever been offshored out of the country. So it was just hustling, no weekends, no celebrations, no festivals, no birthdays. It was just that I burned out in 6 years.
And then you mentioned that you went to London. So talk a little bit about that. How did you get to London?
Yeah.
What was that story?
So when I was burnt out accounting and I said, I don't want to be a partner, I'm 27, 28, and I was like, I want to go to MBA and figure out what I want to do. That's how I got into INSEAD. And at INSEAD, again, the pressure of, I got only as adventurous, I say, as moving from accounting to banking because I had all this pressure of repaying this education loan. I made it to INSEAD, but still did not almost make it because I didn't have the money to pay for the fees. And none of the Indian banks would give me a loan for a European school at that point. They only knew the US schools. So I had to structure somehow my loan to get to INSEAD. And then I had this huge loan to pay, support my family. So got into banking and did not even take the entrepreneurship classes. And then got into, there were only 3, I was only recruiting for leadership rotation programs. And all the 3 that I was recruiting for, I had offers from all 3. I remember I was graduating in 2010 and most people did not have offers. I had offers from all 3 that I was interviewing with. And I chose HSBC's International Manager Program. It was top of my list because it is their CEO track to grow all the business heads, all the geography heads, and they rotate you to different businesses and geographies as a part of that program. So that was the one I joined. But along the way, I got married and we had to manage 2 careers. So I couldn't rotate to the countries they wanted me to go to. So I localized in London. That was my first posting. I did 3 postings back to back, pulled that off somehow, but then they weren't having it anymore. So I localized it to the investment bank. And that's how I got into investment banking. And that was a ride itself, is 17 rounds of interviews because they don't take anybody laterally in banking. And I did not end up in banking. So that did not come very easy either, but it was incredibly challenging.
Yeah, so instead you went in Paris, I'm assuming.
Yes, Paris and Singapore. I did both campuses.
Yeah. So you kind of moved from there to England and then your journey continues. So how did you get to the States?
After 6 years working on big deals, intellectually stimulating, very fast-paced, accomplishing things as a banker, but was again burnt out. And this time I decided to take a break when I was pregnant with my son. And I said, this time, I don't want to go back to banking. And this time I really want to do something that I believe in. I want to have an impact, but I wasn't clear what I wanted to do. And while I was on my maternity, my husband moved to Seattle for his company. And I happened to follow him to Seattle. And that's where I started hiking after my son turned 1 year old because I had severe postpartum depression and I was 60 pounds over because of the pregnancy. And that's how I took to the outdoors more for my postpartum recovery, both physical and mental. And that was absolutely transformational. So that's how from, starting hiking, like doing 1 mile to being able to climb Rainier on his 2nd birthday. That was a journey I got on for my mental and physical recovery.
So let's talk a little bit about, you can't just go from one day you don't hike and then the other day in a year climb Mount Rainier. So there's a process, right? First of all, our listeners, if you've never been to the Pacific Northwest, this is hiking country,
Yes.
right? Everybody hikes here. This is surrounded by some beautiful nature, mountains, lakes, trails, at times beautiful weather, even if it is wet, it is
Right.
get used to it. So talk a little bit about what was that attraction? Because I have seen a lot of people who move here change how they think about the physical and the outdoors.
Definitely. I was just so fortunate that we moved here because that was exactly what I needed for my healing and for my recovery and from a point of desperation postpartum after my son turned 1 and I had no physical strength, stamina, so low emotionally. 2, I started hiking 1 mile and then I remember we went to the Bridal Trails hike and I would go out of bed even to do that 1 flat mile. But I felt good. So I went back a couple of times carrying my, baby, my son in a carrier and felt better. So then I got introduced to some Indian moms who used to hike over the summer. So I did small hikes with them, like Little Sai, Rattlesnake, and these hikes. And it made me feel better. So I kept going back with them every weekend. And then they stopped after 3 months. And that's when I found myself tipping into depression again and needed it. So I started looking at all the meetups and started hanging out in Facebook groups and communities, right? And I would see these beautiful places, pictures being posted, and I would just start researching them and reading about them. I remember I didn't even have a car. I didn't have a driving license. So I always had to take an Uber to a park and ride and then get a ride with somebody, a lot of coordination, to be able to get whatever it took. So I joined these meetup groups where there were teachers, stay-at-home moms organizing hikes and nurses who had more time off. So I would just go with them. And that's who I learned then how to hike in the wintertime, what are micro spikes, how to go snowshoeing, and then ultimately learned mountaineering and joined another nonprofit called Asha, an amazing community from whom, some of the leads there I learned mountaineering from, doing all of this without a driving license, without a car. But there are so many beautiful places in the Pacific Northwest. We were just so fortunate to have such beautiful hikes within such close driving distance of the city and a whole community around it. So that was absolutely life-changing for me, being able to do that. I didn't even realize how it was so healing. Finding community. I was new to Seattle. I didn't have friends here, right? So it was not just the physical recovery or the mental recovery, also because you're making those connections, not just with your body, with nature, with people. So it was absolutely incredible.
So talk a little bit about that preparation for Mount Rainier and then what you're doing now.
Yeah, so, I had lost the 20 pounds just carrying my son and hiking like 6 months. But not just that. When I make up my mind, I get after it. So I had made up my mind to lose all the 60 pounds. Remember, I wasn't buying any clothes. I have to fit back into my old clothes. So I had gone off sugar for an entire year. I was doing 2 classes, 5:30 to 7 a.m. in pro club called Mountain Conditioning. Made some amazing friends there and with an amazing instructor. So I would do these boot camp style, HIIT training style classes, 5:30 to 7 twice a week. I would do hot yoga twice a week and 1 to 2 hikes. So I had this routine that I would just follow. And after the first 40 pounds, the last 20 wouldn't go off. And that's when my son was getting bigger. So people saw me carrying him in the carrier on people point. They're like, are you weight training? You can be climbing our mountains because you're weight training, because to climb big mountains, you need to be able to carry a 40-pound pack because you're carrying your gear, including your tent and your sleeping gear, sleeping bag, etc. So that planted the idea in my mind that I could climb Rainier. And so I said, that's what I'm going to sign up for, to lose the last 20 pounds. And so I signed up for Rainier, and in the process, ended up climbing, Mount St. Helens, Adams, Baker, all these mountains to train and get ready to climb Rainier. And then on Ved's second birthday, it was on the summit of Rainier.
That's such an amazing story. That is, again, this is all about how you condition your mind, right? It's not about your physical strength or space.
Yep.
It's really about how you condition your mind.
Yeah.
So here you come back down from the mountain and you decide that you are actually going to start something new.
Yeah, so it didn't happen. It wasn't like
yeah, obviously.
Right. So, and this was something that had come to my mind like 15 years ago after when I was trekking through the Icelandic highlands. the guides were telling me how the companies paid them so less and if there was somebody to help them with the technology, they could be doing this on their own and making a lot more and have a better life because they were absolutely incredible humans, really, good at what they do, but had like torn gear and, did not make enough. And that's when I remember having joked with them that what if I started this company? And it was in the back of my mind since that there was an opportunity to solve for this where the guides are help, the local guides, you can provide them help. And then I used to do wildlife photography when I was in India. So when I was in London, I wanted to do Masai Mara. And I remember the search results were always showing me photographers from London who were doing it 15 years ago for like $5,000, $7,000 for 5 days. But I knew they were local photography experts in Africa, in India, guys I had learned from the photo mentors from Canon and Nikon. They did it much cheaper. So I knew there was this issue of geo-positioning of search results that you can't find the local guides from where you're searching. You see the results local to where you're searching from. So I knew there was this issue. So it was always in the back of my mind. And I started then through my hiking journey, how I started hanging out with the meetups and others to learn mountaineering. I saw like the bunch of Indian moms I started with, they had stopped after the summer. Winters is when a lot of us need the outdoors for our mental health. And that's when I saw a lot of the folks who did not grow up in that culture of outdoors have all this intimidation and hesitation to go out in the snow because they don't know how to do it. Right? And they cannot benefit from all this transformation that I went through. I feel like so many more people need it, but they need a little bit of assistance to be able to do it. They need a little bit of guidance and a little bit of encouragement and a community that will not judge them. Whereas all the tour operators in the US, I saw either assume that you do not know how to do this stuff or you don't want to do this stuff. But there's so many people who wanted to do it, but who needed a little bit of hand-holding and a little bit of guidance. And that I said, that's what I want to do because it helps you so much, healing, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. So I wanted to enable that for others. So I understood the issue, the challenge and the need. And I had this desire to make an impact and put my energy and talent in something that is helping improve lives and having an impact. So that's how I said, this is what I'm going to put my energy in and this is what I'm going to build.
So talk about what you build now. So talk a little bit about what is AdventureTripr and what do you do? How all of these different layers that you talked about come together. You've got people taking people out. You've got the guides. You've got the environment.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that.
So AdventureTripr is a global marketplace for curated multi-day active trips in the nature. And now we're adding more and more wellness and spiritual trips as well, which help you with healing, with connection, with your well-being, whether it is, just physical fitness or mental wellness and emotional wellness. So that's what we do, but we are a team of experts who have 15 to 20 years of experience in the large corporate world with a passion for outdoors. We're all mountaineers, bikers, runners who bring those risk management practices and leverage those to find the best local guiding companies and bring them on their platform and their best curated trips. So we're a curated platform and not an open marketplace for anybody to have their trips listed. It is highly curated. And these are trips only with very rigorously vetted local guides. So that's the offering. And we do not stop at just being a marketing and a booking platform. We enable people to be successful on these trips by providing them the support they need to be able to be successful, right? Whether it's training plans, gear lists, my team being available to answer all their questions. So we do a lot of the support to get you ready for whatever it is that you've signed up for till the time you reach the destination, which is where the local guiding company takes care of you. But we are still in the loop to make sure it's a seamless experience. So that's what we've built. And now we have about 565 plus curated trips across 50 plus countries and counting.
Describe one of these trips. What happens?
Think about, let's say, Iceland. It's not just going to be driving through the Icelandic coast and seeing all those waterfalls. So we do offer that as well. But differentiated trips are going to be the ones in which you will be trekking to the Icelandic highlands, which most of the Icelandic people have also not seen, which is not achievable, on vehicle. So you will have to trek through it. And we have the best local guiding companies who can take you through that experience. And not just that, we can also send a coach with you to do a leadership retreat to help you with personal growth issues that you might be working with. So that would be our differentiator, is leveraging being in the nature with the right kind of like-minded people and the right kind of coaches and local guides. So we have the best guides that we work with. Or for instance, Kerala. we will have the retreats in Kerala where you will have the specialist telling you what is the right therapy, Ayurvedic therapy for you, given whatever issues, you're facing. So it's very customized too. When it's a wellness retreat, you're being taught yoga, meditation by some of the best teachers out there. And there are, therapists telling you, prescribing the right kind of Ayurvedic treatments for you. So these are the experiences, right from nature walks in Japan, walking the Kumano Kodo trail to the pilgrimage trail, Camino de Santiago in Spain, to climbing big mountains and everything in between, and spiritual retreats to Mount Kailash in Kerala and Rishikesh, etc.
This is amazing. So people, if you are interested in it, go visit the site. It's adventuretripr.com. You can go take a look at it. As we come to the end of our session, talk a little bit about the importance of purpose. Clearly, you have found purpose. How has that unfolded in what you're doing?
I consider myself so fortunate to have found my purpose, and I always had this itch. Like, I had so much energy and I put in so much into whatever I do. I really want to put my energy into something that I believe in and, have an impact. So through my journey, I found my purpose, and that really helped me build and survive AdventureTripr to quite a few challenges, right from launching just before the pandemic to a fundraising route. It was a mission driven that we could keep going. When the pandemic happened, I just launched the company and I did, question everything when everyone else was shutting down. But I knew how much it could help people with healing, with connection, with their well-being. So it kept me going. I found ways to pivot and repivot and make it work. When I was getting predatory terms from investors, I could still keep going to find ways to keep it going because of the impact we were having and people calling and telling us the kind of impact we were having on their lives. So once you find your purpose, whatever is thrown at you, I think you find a way to make it work, and that passion just takes you through. And that has just held us in good stead.
So as we come to the end of our podcast, give me your one golden nugget, a piece of wisdom that you live by that you'd like to share with our audience.
Something that I believe in and I have always stood by is any challenge that is thrown at you, you should always look at it as an opportunity. I feel like that's what I've done all my life. It's flipped every challenge on its head to look at it as an opportunity, whether it was launching, during the pandemic. I see it as an opportunity that nobody else can make it work, but I can. Then we will be the only one standing out. So that I see an opportunity in that. If the funding isn't coming through or is not at the right terms, I look at it as an opportunity to build a sustainable business, which is profitable and self-sustaining and not having to rely and depend on external funding. So I feel like my mantra, and this is a nugget I would love to share with anybody, is that look at any challenge as an opportunity. Even on a trip, if something goes wrong, that's what I tell my team. This is your opportunity to do something, go above and beyond to give the client a super special experience that they will remember forever. And that's what I would say to all of the audience and the podcast as well.
Opportunity. It is always about opportunities, not challenges. It's about you thinking through what you want to do in the situation that you are in. With that, thank you so very much for this amazing conversation. Again, to our listeners, purpose is that renewable source of energy that continues to drive humanity forward. Purpose comes from you. It's part of your memories. It's part of your journey. It's something that is sitting inside you. Let it out. Go on a hike.
Go look for it. Don't wait for it to come to you. I think it's good to be deliberate about it and think about it. And no better way than being in the nature and getting some movement in. So absolutely.
With that, Preeti, thank you very much.
What a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for having me again.